I am the Namer, guardian of the names of power. Before your world even existed, my people were an ancient race. Now they are gone, and only I remain, keeper of my people's history. Across the endless tracts of space have I traveled, to return to the planet of my birth, Zoidstar. Though my people perished long ago, and their cities were buried by the shifting sands, the machines remain. It is these that have brought me here to perform the last act of the Zoidarian race, the giving of the names of power. When my race was young and had an interest in the affairs of the galaxy, they built the machines, mighty engines of destruction which gave the power of life and death over the other creatures in the galaxy. The Zoidarians turned their gaze outward and laid waste to 1,000 star systems with their machines, their Zoids. But ruling a galaxy was not enough for the Zoidarians. It was not the conquests, but the battles they enjoyed. And though all intelligent life trembled in the shadow of the Zoids, my people battled on, machine against machine, Zoidarian against Zoidarian, in the further pursuit of glory. Zoidarian lives were needlessly sacrificed to the god of battle, and the race dwindled in numbers until the elders outlawed the Zoid duels. But they couldn't outlaw the Zoidarian love of combat. The Zoidarian pilots of the giant war machines were replaced by androids, and thus the heroic combat could continue without threat to Zoidarian life. Too late came the order. Too late to save a once mighty race from extinction, and now only I remain. Only I and the Zoids. And though my people created the Zoids, I have no power to control them. For the war machines have become the living embodiment of the Zoidarian thirst for combat, with lives and wills of their own. They exist only to fight, to ensure that their heroic combat lasts for all eternity. Now I stand on the sand-blasted surface of a world I used to call home, high on a rock, scanning the horizon for some sign of movement, knowing that out there, behind the sand clouds, lurk the deadliest war machines in the universe. It begins!
War machine in blue and gray steel. On the battlefield. Zoid combat, hellfire, tank Zoids fight on at speed, and laser shot, mighty war machine, burn away Empire rot. Tank, heavy armor, mechanized machine, shining grey and blue armor, shine and gleam. Tank wheels with white spike tracks, blind foes to dust, blow foes away and do not rust. Rolling monster machines on metal wheels, firing beam guns hot on enemy heels. Zoidarian weapons of foreign steel, tank Zoids engage combat with metal seal. Forged by Zoidarian hand for space war, tank Zoid built in grey and blue steel laser core. Energy weapons for space war conquest, on planet Zoidstar they invade. No rest, tank time, rolling thunder on spiked steel tread. Tank Zoids, tank time, laser beams fire to spread. Portrait, portrait. Tank time, fearless monster machine, Zoid bread, Zoid bread. Tank Zoids, attack without mercy till foes dead. Zoid war gives way to heroic combat. Zoid duels on planet Zoidstar on a spat. Zoidarians duel till androids replace, till Zoidzilla destroys Zoidarian race. Zoidstar now belongs to Zoid Cannoli. Tank Zoids patrol the wastes, grim and lowly. Zoid against Zoid in heroic combat, until come the red Zoids to crush natives flat. Tank time, rolling thunder on spiked steel tread. Tank Zoids, tank time, laser beams fire to spread. Portrait, portrait. Tank time, fearless monster machine, Zoid bread, Zoid bread. Tank Zoids, attack without mercy till foes dead. Now, now native Zoids must unite to survive. Red Zoid remnants must not be allowed to thrive. Tank Zoids join blue guardians of Zoidzilla, rolling grey and blue steel, red Zoid killers. Tank time, rolling thunder on spiked steel tread. Tank Zoids, night time, laser beams fire to spread. Portrait, portrait. Tank time, fearless monster machine, Zoid bread, Zoid bread. Tank Zoids, attack without mercy till foes dead. Tank time, rolling thunder on spiked steel tread. Tank Zoids, night time, laser beams fire to spread. Portrait, portrait. Tank time, fearless monster machine, Zoid bread, Zoid bread.
It is the never-ending battle between red and blue Zoids. It has been waged for centuries. It rages still, with no end in sight.
I, the Namer, last of the Zoidarians, guardian of the names of power, keeper of the legend of heroic combat, have spoken.